Hello and welcome back. Now, in most businesses, leadership means managing people. But in this business, leadership means something a little bit different. It means becoming someone worth duplicating. So that is the whole model. Your income, your team's growth, your legacy in this business, none of it comes from doing more yourself. It comes from becoming someone other people want to learn from and repeat. So today, that's what we're building, not authority in and of itself, but duplication. So I want you to remember the core of this business model. You switch your buying habits, you share, you duplicate, right? Very simple. So again, you switch where you buy, you share the products in the plan, and then this is the part that actually builds you an asset. You duplicate. You teach others to do what you are doing. Okay? Now, here's why that last piece is everything. If your business only grows because you personally work harder, you haven't built a business, you've built a job with extra steps. So, leverage only happens when what you know how to do can live in someone else, and then in someone they teach, and so on, right? Now, this is the difference between having a group and a team. A group is just a collection of people that are connected to you, whereas a team is a collection of people connected to a shared way of operating. So one that keeps working whether or not they are personally in the room. Okay. Now, your job as a leader is to move people from just being in a group to being part of your team. Okay. Now, you'll hear us talk about this idea of, having 6 people, bringing 6 people is a foundation for achieving a diamond level, right? So again, sponsoring 6 committed people who each go on to then sponsor 6 more, right? And then those 6 sponsor 6 more. And this is a beautiful foundation. It's going to lead you to achieving that diamond. Now, it's easy to hear this as just a numbers strategy, but I want you to hear it as a leadership strategy instead. Okay, so 6 is a number of people that you can actually lead well, all right? Not 50 people that you barely know. 6 people you can genuinely coach, believe in, and walk alongside until they can do it without you. All right? Then your job shifts. You're not trying to personally sponsor the entire organization. You are developing 6 leaders who know how to develop their own 6. Okay, that's the real skill being built here. So not just recruiting, but this is a leadership transfer. So every time you help one of your 6 become someone who can develop their own 6, you have multiplied your income without multiplying your hours. This is what is so fundamental, and that's what duplication actually looks like in practice. So you cannot lead people somewhere that you haven't gone yourself, right? So before we talk about leading a team, let's talk about what leadership requires internally. Now, we talked previously about mindset. So we're looking here at specifically a growth mindset. Okay, leadership in this business starts with your own willingness to learn and change and grow, and not just once, but continuously, right? As soon as we expand to a new level, we're going to keep growing and learning and expand to another level and another level. It's unending, all right? And the moment that you decide that you've arrived at somewhere, that's the moment that your team stops seeing you as anyone worth following, okay? Another thing we're going to focus on is independent thinking. So your goal is never to create people who depend on you for every decision. It's to develop people who can think and decide for themselves. Now, a leader who's always needed hasn't built leadership, they've built dependency. and that is going to exhaust you. So the real win is watching someone on your team solve a problem without having to call you first, because you already taught them how to think it through. And now they have become an independent thinker. Okay. And then ownership of the process is the next one. So real growth happens when people take ownership of their own learning instead of waiting to be handed the next step. Okay. So part of your role is modeling that, showing your team what it looks like to keep studying, keep reflecting, keep showing up for yourself and for others, rather than waiting for motivation to arrive on its own, okay? Or waiting for somebody to tell you to do something or to tell you to study and work on yourself and your personal development. So you are modeling this behavior for your team. And then next is to become a promise keeper. So this might be the simplest and maybe most overlooked leadership principle that there is. Every commitment that you keep, whether it's a follow-up call, a training you said you would send, a time you said you'd show up, it is a deposit into your credibility. Okay, it builds your trust bank. So every promise that you break is then going to be a withdrawal. So teams don't duplicate what a leader is just saying, they're going to duplicate what a leader actually does. So again, we are demonstrating, we are modeling the behaviors of being a leader, of showing up for ourselves and for others, and making sure that we keep the promises that we say that we're going to do. So here's what this might look like in a real conversation with somebody that you're currently developing. So one, maybe help them define their future desired state. So ask what they actually want this business to give them, okay? Not what you assume they want. We don't want to just, transfer our own personal goals and visions onto somebody else. We need to listen and see what their goals are, what their desires are, where they want to go with this business, right? Leadership is going to start with that listening, not just directing, not telling them what they should want based on what we think, but actually listening and seeing what they desire. And then number two, we're going to reflect it back to them and build a plan together. Okay, again, this is not a plan that you just hand them and say, do this. It's going to be a plan that you build with them so that it's theirs, okay? We are just guiding and assisting them with the process. We're not doing everything for them. They're going to take a lot more ownership and become that leader when they have been a part of the process, okay? Number three is then to schedule a follow-up before you end that conversation. So growth might stall if there's gaps, right? If there's big gaps between sessions where you're meeting with your incoming leaders. So you don't want to leave that gap open-ended. You want to close it before you finish talking so that you've you've discovered what their goals are. You've worked on a plan together. You're going to follow up, because you're going to see how are things developing, where do we need to assist, what are changes that need to be made. And again, you're going to keep the promise that you made in step 3, and you are going to follow up every single time, right? So if we do this consistently with those first 6 people, we're not managing a downline. We are developing leaders, okay? And each of those 6 doing the same thing on their own, for their own 6 that they brought in, this is how this will actually scale to very large numbers, okay? This is not through your effort multiplying, but through your leadership multiplying, okay? And so once you have developed 6 people and you see that they are doing really well, they're working independently, now they have become leaders, they're leading their teams of 6, and you can see it's going on. Now we can start looking at, let's get another group of 6 people who are driven, who are ready to become leaders themselves, and we do the same thing, right? So you don't need to go out and try to develop 50 leaders at one time. We are doing this in stages with groups that are easy to manage and much more effectively, where we can really develop them into really great leaders, okay? So leadership isn't just like some title that you are given. It is a pattern that you repeat until other people can repeat it too. When we're looking at growth mindset, independent thinking, keeping promises, genuine investment in someone else's future, not just their production, right? These are key aspects of becoming a good leader yourself so that you can model that and show other people how to be a good leader for their team. Okay, so before you move on from this training, I want you to think about a few things. One is identify a person already on your team, maybe, or a prospect in front of you who's most ready for a real development conversation, right? That you can tell they're ready to start growing into that leader. Ask them one question this week. What does this business need to give you for it to be worth it? And then listen, right? So listen to what their response is. Don't inject your own opinions and ideas for them. And then number 3, whatever you commit to after that conversation, make sure that you keep that commitment. Okay, that is where leadership actually starts, staying true to our word, showing up the way that we want others to show up for us as well. Okay, so you don't need a fancy title to start leading. You just need someone worth developing. You just need to first lead yourself so that you can go through these things, so that you can develop those key aspects such as the growth mindset, the setting of goals, all of these different things that we talked about here. And then you become somebody who is worth duplicating, right? Because through your own discipline and your own follow through, then other people are going to see that. They're going to pick up on that. They're going to want to be that way too. And then this is how you're going to grow a beautiful, strong, and effective community and team of people, not just a group of people all sitting there waiting for you to make the decisions, right? So leadership, again, in this business looks a little bit different than some other businesses because we are in the business of developing leaders, not just developing like minions or people to do our bidding. We want everybody to win and everybody to become a leader so they can grow their own teams, okay? So go find that first person that you really want to develop, and maybe it starts with yourself, and that's okay too. And then you can find the next person and the next person and start that team of strong, dedicated leaders. So have fun with this.